Hi, everyone. Welcome to VCTV, another episode of VCTV, which is the Venture Capital TV, and it's from LATOKEN. As we all know, the whole purpose and the goal and the idea behind VCTV one was born in February 2020 this year. The whole purpose was to connect investors with startup founders. Founders are the one who are actually drive any economy forward, especially during the time of crisis. So they are the ones who need help in terms of funding, in terms of mentoring, in terms of scaling up, traction, and everything else that comes with fundraising. So that's why VCTV was born back in February 2020 with a very noble cause, and we've come a long way since then, and it's becoming a little community. Not only of founders, startup founders, but community of investors as well. People like yourselves who are like regular speaker, we get to hear that you obviously love VCTV and you obviously feel like coming back, and we see you back. So as I said, VCTV is VCTV because of you, because you make it informative, you make it interesting. There's a lot of content, a lot of insights coming from you all. So today's topic is a very technological topic. It's about technology. It's about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data. And we're going to discuss about the recent trends, considering what happened during the pandemic and what did we achieve using these technologies. So today's topic is very much centric around the use cases of these technologies. So before I start with the speakers, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Sunny Mohanty, and I'm the Regional Director of LATOKEN, and I'm based here in Singapore. Welcome again. I'd like to start with India first. So basically, since I'm in Asia, I'm going to start from Asia. I'm expecting one more speaker, Gary. so that's why it's a small, cozy sort of panel today. So let's start with Shailesh, who's dialing in from India. Hi, Shailesh. Welcome to VCTV. How are you today?
I'm fine, Sony. Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity. And let me briefly introduce myself. This is Shailesh Salvi, representing Xfinity Venture Partners. We are early stage VC focusing on purely B2B enterprise tech startups. And the journey has been quite wonderful. In fact, we ourselves got I would say a strong surprise with this pandemic and the kind of push by enterprises on digitization and automation. I think that kind of a push has really helped very well to our startups.
Okay, great. Thanks for that really a quick introduction, Shailesh. I'm gonna ask you more questions. Great. Next I have Jose. Hi, Jose. How are you today?
Hi, Sonny. I'm doing quite well. Very happy to be here once more on VCTV. Thank you for the invite. And I've been a serial entrepreneur now for more or less 40 years. Started very young. Studied finance and economy and technology. Been a business angel for 26 years and a VC for more or less 3 years. Although I've been on both sides of the table, I really prefer to be acting like an entrepreneur. And the reason because of that is that I really enjoy building up businesses and the whole excitement about it. So this topic today is a very interesting one. I really love it because whatever we do today, it's all about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data. It's really the new fuel, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you, Sunny.
Excellent, Jose, and welcome back. I'm looking forward to hear from you as well. Thank you so much. Okay, next we have a new speaker on our panel, Hassi. Hi, Hassi. Welcome to VCTV.
Hi.
This is your first time. Can you please introduce yourself a little bit more than others, because others have been regular speaker on our episodes. So what do you do? Which company you represent? And yeah, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Sunny, and thanks for having me on the program. My name is Hashi Sudler. I'm the CEO of Internet Think Tank, a company which I actually did start up while I was living in Japan, so very close to where Sunny is in Singapore. And it is a global company. We focus on cybersecurity and blockchain technologies. I'm also an adjunct professor at Villanova University based in Philadelphia, and I teach in those two subjects as well, in cybersecurity and blockchain. And one of the things that we've been very interested in over the past several years is the application of blockchain technologies in a number of use cases. And one of the exciting innovations around blockchain is this merger between blockchain and AI. What happens when you bring these two very emerging technologies together, and what are some of the benefits that we can provide to society with an immutable ledger as well as with a very intelligent machine learning or deep learning system. So those are very exciting areas for us, and look forward to sharing some of the things that we're doing both at the university and at my company.
Excellent, Hasi, and we would love to hear about your kind of experiments that you've been doing. I've been in touch with you, I know that offline, but for the viewers, it's very important to know what stuff you're doing. Thank you so much, Hasi, and welcome to VCTV.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Gary. I was worried, like, Gary, where is he? I mean, I know you're always on time. Gary, welcome back. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm fantastic, actually. Anyhow, I'm just putting a kitchen in, so I had to go out and get breakfast for my wife. So that's where I was, actually.
Right.
We don't have anything running. So my name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial AI entrepreneur. I've done 16 companies, and I was on the original management team at Click Software, a company out of Haifa, Israel, was sold to Salesforce for $1.3 billion. And I also am the co-founder of Viva, which is one of the top AI HR tech companies. Our business is up 38x from the beginning of the pandemic. So we've been at the right place at the right time. And currently, I am the co-founder of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, an AI venture studio. And we focus on companies from all over the world and going global. So we work with companies from Dubai, from Jakarta, from Russia, from Belarus, I mean, you name it. And we curate those companies. I also am a writer. I've written now 84 articles on artificial intelligence in the last year. And I have two programs that focus primarily on AI, one in Silicon Valley and another one with bringing in top speakers from around the world to talk about the trends and the future of technology. So that's me.
Excellent. I keep on watching your shows, Gary. Thank you so much for tagging me. And
Sure.
welcome to VCTV again.
Thank
Great.
you.
Welcome. Four speakers, and so all set with introductions. So we understand the topic for today's episode, and I can see a lot of things coming out from each of you today. Starting with Shailesh. Shailesh, can you just explain us a bit about the trends that you've seen in India and the regions and the geographies that you invest in terms of AI, machine learning, and big data?
Sure. In fact, we not only invest only in India, but we typically invest in Indo-US corridor. Because being into enterprise tech focus startups, although India act as basically the early stage market for all our portfolio companies, but post product market fit, I think most of the monetization happen either in US or in Singapore. So that way we are, we call it as Indo-US or Singapore-India corridor for all our startups. So coming back to the pandemic, in the month of March, when it got, when the pandemic broke out, we literally, actually, frankly speaking, there was no, foresight for that at that particular point of time. And we were literally, confused in the mind, what is the way ahead now?
Yeah.
Because completely, everything got frozen. I would say people were going back on their commitments, and it was completely, I would say, dark, sort of a things. And I think we landed in we felt like that we landed in a no man's land. But slowly, when the things have started from April and onwards, when the slowly things started, I think some of our companies has got some sort of, I would say, push from some of their customers. Because for example, we have a portfolio company called Mad Street Brain, which is basically targeting AI enabledness for fashion and retail vertical. So that particular company signed up almost, I would say, about 23 new clients in the month of only April.
Wow.
Which is the lifetime high in their I would say history.
Right.
And those logos were, I mean, as big logos like I would say Diesel, Levi's, Net-a-Porter, those sort of brands which they signed, because the brands were probably cognizant of the fact that no customer is going to walk in physically into the store because of this pandemic. So they wanted to give that kind of a online experience, immersive experience to their customer, or seamless experience to the customer for their shopping. So this particular company, which is basically into, I would say, AI for fashion and retail, which is basically offering the entire product suite, right from inventory management to the front end drive, and through the computer vision platform. So I would say this company, in fact, in the month of April and May, has, I would say, bagged apart from the more number of customers, it has bagged the highest number of contracts also. So I would say it was I would say, a pleasant surprise. And this is not the only one company. There are companies into, let's say, I would say a voice bot, which is basically translate from voice to text back to voice. So that particular company, which is into, I would say, focusing more on call center automation, that company also got a pleasant surprise when they signed up all the major banks in India in the month of April and May. So what has happened is, I mean, because of this pandemic, the call centers are not really designed to address the, I would say, the social, I would say, the protocol of the pandemic. And because of that, there were hardly any, I would say, attendance in the call centers. They were not addressing the queries very effectively. And because of this particular automation in the call center, I think the kind of banks which have backed up, which have signed up the contracts with these particular company, it is called vernacular.ai, which is focusing more on, I would say, inclusive banking for all the tier one or forget about tier one, tier two and tier three towns. So that particular company has got almost a fantastic, I would say, signed up the contracts. Right. Also, the third case is the food inspection. So we have a company called Axit, which is focusing on, the food inspection for the consistency in the quality based out of California. So right now they're concentrating more on the, I would say, the premium food products, like I would say strawberries and almonds and berries and stuff like that. So that company also got suddenly the huge, I would say, contracts from the customers, saying that these companies, they are, I mean, all their food inspectors, they could not turn up for the inspection job. And those particular food products has got a very seasonality. One particular year, you get strawberries, and after that, probably you have to wait for the next year. Right. So none of those companies wants to wait for the next year and want to, invest this year crop. So that company, including, let me say that company called Driscoll. So that has signed up, I would say, instantly in the month of April and May with the company for their food inspection. Right. So in a way, when at the time of outbreak of the COVID, we were literally at a very, I would say, frankly, at a no man's land. But I would say by end of May, we literally got a, I would say, clear path to what's happening and how's the pandemic is panning out for our portfolio companies. I think we got a early sense that things are not at all bad for us. And to tell you, and the icing on the cake is based on this traction from the customers. I would say 5 of our companies has closed the next round of funding also. So apart from the customers, there are investors also are waiting for that kind of investor proposition, and that is, I would say, the icing on the cake.
Right. Thank you, Salesh. I mean, you've actually given more insights what's happening in the space and in terms of portfolio companies. Huge success, and thank you for sharing those. Next, I have Jose. Hi, Jose. Same question to you. So, what do you see the trends and the roadmap and the future?
Well, I think we are overlooking one very important aspect on everything, and the aspect has everything to do with what we do today. So we humans, we are processing data. Let me try to get a better connection. We humans are processing data on a second basis or millisecond basis, right?
Yeah.
So artificial intelligence and big data and machine learning is everything to do with that, right? So the way I see things going in the actual status is that humans have used tools to, let's say, be able to expand and be more efficient in whatever they do in life, right? And artificial intelligence, big data, and machine learning needs to be addressed in that same way. So we can use that to enhance, ourselves to become essentially be able to make much better decisions. And the processing power that we already have in ourselves is tremendous. But if we get assistance, like we use a car to drive to somewhere, and in this case, just to process data, that's fantastic. I think COVID basically has accelerated the whole process in that direction much more faster. And everybody suddenly starts to look at it. Oh, so what are we doing? I remember that I started looking into AI and machine learning in 2010, so 10 years ago, okay? Especially focused on decision-making for small businesses. And we eventually embedded that into a bunch of softwares. But today, with the new generations, I'm always talking about millennials and the younger generation. And why do I focus on millennials? So although the baby boomers, individually, they have more buying power, right?
Yeah.
Collectively, they have less buying power than all the millennials together. That's the case. So my focus is to get this new generation, giving them the tools that they are able to do something that we have never solved up to today, which is something I call business inclusion, right? And that business inclusion, if we look at it and we take big data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, right, and we create a sphere around each individual, then suddenly we can give them the tools very targeted to what they need, instead of giving them, let's say, a huge amount of data that they need to select from. Doesn't make any sense anymore. When you drive a car, right, you take a automatic gearbox. So why would you take a manual one if the automatic gearbox can do it for you? And that's the way I look at it. So I'm really excited about the times that are coming because I see that we're going to in a speed, and that speed will make that everything around you basically is targeting very directly to you, to your character, your spirit, the way you want things. And you can see that in everything. Look, data is in healthcare, finance, consumer products, you name it. Anything you can look at it today has data inside it. Okay? And that's what I would like to leave my message, is that think about data as something that is good and that is influencing your daily life every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And that this data is getting bigger and bigger. And Gary's going to, explain that a little later. But before I go to Gary, I have Hassi to share what he's doing in the space and what does he see the future in the space. Thank you, Hassi.
Hi, thanks, Sunny. So, when the pandemic got started and it really started to become serious in the U.S. And around March, one of the things that became very evident in really the first month after that was that the United States, as well as the world, was having difficulty containing the virus. And contact tracing was one of the areas that we knew we had to do better in if we wanted to really contain the virus. One of the things that we did at the university is to pull together a small team, and combined with my company, we joined forces to create a contact tracing application. And one of the unique things about this contact tracing application is that it's based completely on blockchain. And one of the main differences between some of the contact tracing applications that you see out there, hosted by Apple or Google, and some others, is that those particular contact tracing applications use a lot of cell phone memory in order to store very private keys about who you are and who may have coronavirus. So a lot of that information is really set on the phone itself. When we have blockchain introduced to the mix, basically we do all the contact tracing on the blockchain layer. So we relieve the phone of actually having to store any type of sensitive keys about the individual, or particularly who has coronavirus. Obviously, that's very, very sensitive medical information about ourselves. Also, our application becomes global. It's a global platform. A lot of the other contact tracing applications are quite local to the city or state that you're in. But what we didn't see is contract tracing solutions that could work globally. And we've seen hotspots happening across various cities in the US, Brazil, certainly Italy. So all of these various locations having problems with contact tracing. And we wanted to be able to provide a solution that could help any of those areas facing some crises. The way we designed the application, however, was not just to help people identify who did you come in contact with. Obviously, that's one of the key functions of the application. Did I come in contact with someone who now has coronavirus? Do I need to be worried? Do I need to reach out for medical attention? What we also wanted to do was introduce AI into the system to help people really prevent getting coronavirus in the first place. So we introduced AI in the form of predictive analytics to really look at the history of how many people have you come in contact with, how many of those individuals eventually reported themselves as coronavirus positive. And by looking at the trends over the past 7, 14, or 21 days, we can do some predictive analytics to say it's likely that you may have an uptick in the amount of people that you will interact with over the next day or the next week or even the next month. And that really helps people drive their decision-making around distancing themselves. And as Jose mentioned, we really need to arm individuals with better information so that they can use the powerful, decision-making tools of their brain to make better choices. So we're pleased with the approach we've taken, improving how contact tracing is done, but also helping people avoid getting infected in the first place by making good, better social distancing decisions.
Excellent. So that's where both the technologies have merged together, blockchain and predictive analysis, the artificial intelligence. Fantastic use case of both the technologies. Thank you, Hassi, for sharing those insights with us and the audience. Last but not least, Gary, I was just reading your article on Forbes. Welcome, and please share your
Oh, wow, great. Thanks. So let's just paint a picture of where we are. Think about it. In 1996, the entire World Wide Web was 257,000 items. And I've talked about that, or websites, and I've talked about this many times, but each one of us has about 300,000 items within our own personal cloud. Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, Telegram, WhatsApp, Slack, you name it, plus, 3 to 7 email addresses. We are in a state, as Alvin Toffler said, of infobesity. We are inundated with information. The number doubles every year. In the next 5 years, we'll have 10 million items within our personal cloud. How in the world can we process? Our brain processes about 60,000 complex transactions per day. How in the world can we ever keep up with it? So, and think about the dilemma we have right now. How many times do you say, I know that file exists, but I simply can't find it? Why? I've either forgotten the location or forgotten the keywords. We need to develop some not smart, intelligent tools to be able to assist us. Our lives need to change. Think about how much data there is. The latest statistics are there are 33 zettabytes of data. If you stack CDs up, DVDs up on top of each other, it would go 23 times back and forth to the moon. So, and it's grown at 62% per year. Now we've got the digital transformation. 5 years ago, I was one of the first Zoom users. I remember when we had the discussion with the VC, with Eric's VC at Zoom, we're talking about how the world would change. Well, think about it has changed, Sonny, in the last 8 months. We now have an entirely different world, a virtual world. We now have a lot more data coming at us. We need to develop intelligent tools that can help us make decisions and also make decisions for us. So it makes our lives a lot easier. And it goes across multiple vertical markets. 2 weeks ago, I talked to the top drug discovery companies, pharmaceutical companies in the UK and actually Europe, not just the UK. And we talked about AI and drug discovery and modeling. It literally goes across markets. Think about it. Manufacturing, cobots, being able to utilize AI and robots together, AI and blockchain, right? To make smart, secure contracts. So if we look at it, every part of our lives is going to change. AI and space tech. I had a conversation with one of the NASA astronauts, Christopher Altman. Think about it. There's 6 billion planets, Earth-like planets, just in the Milky Way, and 200 trillion estimated galaxies within the universe now. We haven't even started. This journey is beautiful, and it's about data. So, you know, Hasi is right. Jose is right. We are about data. And the person that's going to win, Sonny, in this new world is a person that can manage their data properly. So having those tools are going to make the difference. There's going to be two classes of people, the people that know and the people that don't know, the companies that know and the companies that don't know. And let me tell you, the rate that they're going to fail now is a lot faster. It's going to be unprecedented. AI is the new electricity. This is the beginning of the 20th century. Nikola Tesla has just discovered AC. And think about the changes over the next 30 years, what happened. The 30 years, we had manufacturing, healthcare, agriculture. It changed our lives. That's where we are today.
Absolutely, Gary. I was actually reading those articles before I just came live. Thank you so much for sharing those with your audience. Always great to have those insights. Thank you. So now we get 30 minutes into the panel. I want to move from west to east. Started from India. Now I'm going to start from US. I'm going to start with Hasi, with you with a question. So what are because you are also looking to fundraise, if I understand correctly. So as a founder, so what are your advice to other founders for the best practices followed during fundraise? And what are you doing to get those investor attention as well? If you can share those insights with us.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things for any founder when you're really trying to bring up your company is to have something that you can show. If you can build the product that you are really trying to get people interested in, you want to build it up to a point, an MVP, where that product can stand on its own. Of course, in the early stages of the founding of a company, the most important thing that you can do is build your product up. So most people have ideas, and they think their idea is very unique, and it may be unique in some way, but so many other people have great ideas as well. When you're looking at the investor community, they want to know the difference between your idea and an actual product that really is proven to work. So we focused a lot on really making the idea tangible, putting that work into showing the proof of concept actually does work. And we've seen certainly much more responsiveness when we speak to investors about a product that's fully functioning, at least at an MVP level. Doesn't have to do everything, but certainly needs to do the core selling points of that product, so that the product effectively stands on its own. You don't necessarily have to explain it. Seeing is believing, and the investors can see that it works, and they can see the potential in it. I think the next stage, of course, that investors would be interested in is, does this particular product that you've created have traction in the market? And sometimes that's very difficult to predict months ahead. You think you may understand the market, but just like coronavirus, things change very quickly. So you have to understand how the market is actually going to take it one of the things that investors look for is, do you have some, revenue stream, or do you have some traction in the market? Are people willing to use the product? Is your pricing right? And do you have understanding of, what is the consumer's willingness to pay? So those are really the next steps after you get that MVP complete, is trying to reach out to the market base and seeing if they are receptive to your product.
Great, Hase, thanks for that. I understand your roadmap that you are also at some stage this year looking to start your token sale. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's correct. And, as we're putting together a product between my company and the university, of course, we go through all of those legal discussions and agreements between the company and the university. So we're in that process right now. And as we settle that down, then we'll be in a position where we'll go out to get funding. And we look at LATOKEN as, one of the very good fundraising sources for the company.
Thank you. Just one last question. What's the unique selling point of your solution? Because I think every government, every country, every government has a COVID tracing app in place. Singapore does have one. I use it every day. So what's the unique selling point?
I think one of the unique selling points of this product is that, first of all, it is a global application. So for people who are traveling, it's quite unique in that if you say have come in contact with people in your country, travel to a different country, you still can get an update if someone you met in the original country you were in actually turns out to be COVID positive. You're not leaving a jurisdiction from which you no longer can receive updates. You can receive updates on a global scale. The other is we do lean very heavily into predictive analytics, and we're going to be leaning very heavily in the future of this product's roadmap. Because we believe that if we can understand more about a person's contact history and how they behave in terms of social distancing, how close they are to individuals, we can provide some of that predictive analytics to the individual to help them make better choices. I think one of the other key differentiators is that we are actually designing this product to be also very focused on enterprises. So Presbyterian Senior Living is a senior living facility that it will be using this product. And we're also talking to some major investment banks that have the challenge of bringing their employees back to the offices. And, a lot of these organizations are pushing that date out to sometime in mid-2021. But at the end of the day, those companies will have to give the employees some confidence that when people do come back, if there's someone who's infected, that they know that information very quickly and that the company can respond very quickly. So companies are interested in contact tracing applications just for their own environments. So we've built a very robust administrative tool that helps these businesses really track the metrics as well, but for their total population, to understand if there are outbreaks that might be happening and make some very quick choices to relieve that.
Got it. Thank you, Hase, for explaining that nicely. Thank you so much. Next, I have Jose. I just want to know, Jose, because obviously you've got a lot of experience in building startups and also investments. So what are the best practices you would advise a founder who is looking to raise fund? What are the hurdles do you think they face, startups in general, especially that in the technology space, because it's very crowded AI. I have seen a lot of startups and founders in this AI space, not so much in blockchain, but AI. So what are the hurdles they face and how to overcome those hurdles? Over to you, Jose. Thank you.
I think it's a very, very interesting question. And what I can tell you is that of research that we have conducted along a very long period of time, many, many years. Eventually, I became an advisor in Portugal for the Ministry of Economy. And they were struggling with the close down of so many companies during the first year. And then that research extended a little bit, and we found out that this issue was basically a global problem, and the society until today has not come up with an adequate solution. I don't think the problem really lies in the founders. I think it lies essentially in what society is able to offer them. The issue is that 99% of these founders, you know, they are kicking off a traditional business. It's not about innovation. That's point number one. And all the cash, venture capital, you know, business angels, everybody is focused essentially on 2 points: innovation or running companies which are very profitable. So 99% of these guys more or less fall out. So there's no way they can get to the equity. That's the biggest problem they will face. Then the second problem is, because most of these founders, they are first comers. They are not serial entrepreneurs. Okay, otherwise they would know it, right? The learning curve, okay, for building up a business can go up to 5 years, depending on the vertical and what you are doing. And the cash that they have in their pockets, because we researched that, typically in best case scenario would give them a survival, right, to work 100% on their business for 6 months. Now, knowing that your business typically is profitable, even in tech, right, you're always talking about, even in most luckiest way, probably like 1.5, 2 years, but normal is like somewhere between 2 and 3 years. So we know on forehand that they already are dead before they start, because they don't have the right conditions to get there. That's the issue. So my recommendation to them would be, first, check your cash, because you will need that cash and you will need to buy time. It's not only buying time that you need to build up that business, it's also all the ingredients that you need to pay for around you to get you there, okay? If you don't come from a background that you have that cash, then you have a problem. And I would definitely not recommend to go out for debt. That's the last thing you want to do. Debt will push you into bankruptcy, okay? Because that was another problem that we faced, that the government was backing these debts by a state guarantee. And sure, they were able to hold on a longer time. But what happens is that when you get a 3-year loan, and if you look at the way banks give you that loan, it's like this, right? So at the beginning, the curve is very high and it's very low at the end. It means that you pay interest at the beginning and you don't pay interest at the end. It's really not a real good practice, okay? But that's how it works. So it means that after 1.5 years, you only paid up more or less interest, and you still are stuck with the whole loan, okay? So if you're not able to get to that deadline, okay, or to the finish line that you want to get, and remember that after 1.5 years, you only have, you know, probably zero, because you already paid that debt more or less back, and you are still stuck with the rest of the debt. So the problem is, they are not, most of them will not be able to get to that finish line. And the worst part of it is that they get bankrupt. Now, in the US, I think it's more or less mitigated, but people accept that you can make mistakes and you can restart, etc. But what I can tell you that in Europe, okay, it's a nightmare, because you get like a brand mark on your arm, okay, like a vaccine, and nobody wants to deal with you anymore. You know, you're not able to get back normally to your normal status. So look at it also like this. In every, okay, 10 people, only one will ever try to become a business owner. So the percentage is 10. Now we have 7.6 billion people more or less on the globe. Okay, that means that only 760 million people will ever try to become a business owner. And we have 430 million permanently unemployed. Okay. True. So imagine what you could do if you could get those people including into setting up a business. But it's so hard. So what we have done eventually, and I think this is where the AI and the machine learning and the big data comes, is that we said, you know what, this is enough. We want to give everybody an opportunity, okay, without almost no cash and almost no knowledge, to be able to build up a fair business in a very short time frame. Okay. And that's where the AI and the machine learning and the big data comes into, because we let machines do the hard work. Okay. And we teach you in a very short time frame to make the right decisions. Okay. And if you are able, I'm finishing almost, if you're able to get down, okay, the operational costs, right? Drastically,
Yeah.
like 40 to 70%. What happens suddenly is that they struggle to do those sales initially, and then they struggle to have free cash flows, right? Because your business profitability comes more or less from your free cash flows. So if you're able to get that cost down and you're able to speed up the sales process and the amount of customers they get compressed in a shorter time frame, then two things happen. One is that they free a lot of cash flows. Those cash flows can be used to build up their business. And the outcome is they essentially don't need to go out for debt and they don't need to go out for raising equity.
Right.
Okay, as long as they stay within a certain range, right? So I think this is where we are working on.
Yeah.
And we are confident that we are doing a real big global social, let's say, inclusion for everybody in the world. And obviously this all can only work with machine learning, big data, blockchain, artificial intelligence. It's all about processing data. Okay.
Absolutely. Great points, Jose. Really appreciate founders who are listening to Jose and this episode today. Please keep these points in mind. It's very critical for your business, especially if you're early stage startup. Thank you so much, Jose. Gary, I would like to ask you about what are the investment best practices in terms of investment strategies for our early stage startup? Jose mentioned debt financing is not something they should be opting for. I remember you mentioned about SPAC as well on our previous panel. So is it something that investment model is suitable for early stage startups as well? So as for you, what is your advice to the early stage startups?
Well, I actually have one of my startups today that actually is looking to do a debt financing. Because think about it. They've got orders. I did this before, by the way, Sonny, on one of my companies, and I did $9 million worth of business. And it was just because I was so stupid. I didn't know what I was doing, and it was my first startup. But it turned out to be very successful. Here's the deal. What I did is I actually took, so again, this is an early stage startup. I took personal loans out. I took loans and used those loans to be able to finance my deal. So in that one, I did a construction tech company. So I built like $9 million worth of houses at 21. So what I did is I basically used loans, and one of my companies today has a lot of orders. So one, it's called factoring, right? So you're taking your orders and then you're getting credit against those orders. So you don't give up equity. So from my standpoint, if you can use it, and it's happening more and more, I'm hearing about it more and more, I actually would encourage it. Why would I want to give up equity? I remember a situation when the bank came to me and said, Gary, we've given you all these loans. I said, yeah. And he said, well, what if we get some equity in the company? I said, but you're giving me loans. I'm the one that's at risk, right?
Yeah.
It's not you. So
Yeah.
why would I do that? So from my standpoint, I look at it a little differently. I'm looking for where there's angles and I'm not giving up equity. And if I can do that, fine. The situation in terms of SPACs, and I have written an article about it. I believe it's interesting, but it's too early for me to be able to say to a startup that that's the right thing to do. Honestly, I'm not there yet, although I've written about it. So what I want to do is I need to understand it more. What I suggest to think about, I'm a country boy from Pennsylvania, so I keep it simple, stupid for me. And the situation is get your revenue in. So what Ashish has said about doing your customer development, that's exactly right. Get some revenue, because if you have revenue, I trust that you're going to be successful.
Right.
And it proves it to me. It makes your valuation go up, and you're going to give less equity up in your company. So, I mean, again, this is like, but a lot of times, and I hear, talk to startups from all over the world every single day. And it's great to be here with you on VCTV and talk to them here too. But I hear it all the time. They're like, oh, I got this great idea. But if it's that great, why doesn't somebody want to buy something from you? And as Bob Dorff, as she's talked about customer development. So Bob Dorff and Steve Bank wrote that book. And Bob, who's a good friend of mine, and Steve also, but very good friend with Bob, he said, Gary, you know that you got product market fit when people grab it out of your hands and they start calling you. Right? So, hello. So, yesterday I talked to an AI company. The AI company's got incredible technology, but they've over-engineered it so much and they have no customers. And they're trying to raise money, right? It's like, so, and that's when it comes in. Make sure when you're building a company, again, keep it simple. You need a marketer that can speak. You need a technologist that's beyond anything in the world, great. And you need somebody for operations, or you divide it up between the two of the other co-founders. It's just simple, right? You need to be able to speak. You need to be able to get out in front of the world and talk about your incredible technology and present it. But you also got to make sure that, the work's getting done and you're building it. Eva, the company that I started 4 years ago, which is closing on unicorn status today. We started from scratch. One of the billionaires, Russian, actually he's Chinese, Armenian, Russian, who lives in Silicon Valley now. He and I started this company. And let me tell you, it's not easy. We had to pivot 3 times. We started as a Google-like search for the personal cloud, right? We moved into HR tech using the same kind of technology. And now we're one of the top HR tech companies in the world 4 years later. So, make sure that you're pivoting to and responding to the market. Listen, God gave you a mouth and 2 ears for a reason.
Totally. Agree to those.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. Listen.
So that's it. I mean, keep it simple.
Thank you, Gary. I mean, obviously everybody has their own opinion, but again, startups and founders who would like to reach out to Gary, you can always reach out to him as long as you fulfill all those ticks: revenue, traction, keep it simple, marketing, operations. Don't over-engineer it. Thank you, Gary, for that.
And smile once in a while too. That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy that's for you as well. Cheers, Gary. Thank you so much. Sailesh, I'd like to know from you, like you are like Indo-US and Indo-Singapore, as you mentioned. So what are your advice to those founders who are looking to, early stage founders, they're looking to raise money? So Jose said, avoid debt financing. Gary said he has a different opinion. As for you as a VC, what are your advice?
Sure. I think my friend Jose has touched upon this issue quite elaborately. And let me add some of the aspects to that also. So when it comes to early stage funding, the basic, I would say, the fundamental issue, what we normally, vouch for is what is the problem solving statement. Is the problem solving statement is so acute, and basically, is it basically a painkiller rather than a vitamin? That is the crux of the issue, what probably I think we normally vouch for. And then comes the other factors that, okay, how is the market? How is the minimum viability product? Is it in place? What sort of, I would say, POCs are going about? Are these paid POCs? And finally, whether there is a scope for, the startup to, I would say, to gain the pricing, I would say, power. Because generally what happens, these startups at the start of the POCs, they are at the mercy of the enterprises or the clients, because they need some reference clients. So all these enterprises, they, they very happily and merrily, they basically chew these startups as far as pricing is concerned. But if you have a product which is basically a painkiller, then definitely over a period of time, if your POCs are successful, then over a period of time, you are, I would say, in a commanding position to gain the pricing power also. And that we have seen it. And also, let me add to some of the points which Jose has really touched upon, is basically how much, I would say, the startup should preserve the cash in the business. And rather, I completely agree with him that a startup should not go for any venture debt, because that is a killer, I would say, venture debt. So what we did when the COVID struck in the month of March, what we did to our portfolio companies, we ensured that all of them have a runway of at least around 24 months, so that there is no, I would say, because the moment you got a runway of less than a year, everybody will come and choose you, So that way we ensured that, the runway is around 18 to 24 months, comfortable runway. And then probably we can start working on whether how do we optimize the cash flows, whether we can do some cost rationalization, or whether we can do some bridge funding, or whether we can do some strategy. So all those are options come later on. But the first and foremost is basically a startup need to, I would say, preserve the cash, and need to be, I would say the unit economics need to be in place. You know what I mean? So unlike a B2C startup, in B2B startups, we in fact came across this particular unit economics very efficiently. These guys, they manage. And I would say, unless you got a, I would say, compelling proposition, and you are addressing the, I would say, the real problem, then definitely client is more than happy to pay you, rather than you are at the mercy of the client when it comes to pricing power. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Thank you, Salesh, for differentiating between painkiller and a vitamin
Right.
so nicely. Thank you so much. Great. We just a few more minutes to sort of close the show. I'd like to know from Hashi, what's your closing remarks for the show, and what's your feedback about VCTV, considering this is your first time?
Well, I think this is a really great forum to bring founders and investors together, and it's wonderful sharing some of these ideas about creating new ventures. What does it require to create successful ventures, and what is the life of a person who's building ventures? As we know, the path of creating a new venture is very unique to the person, to the product, to the market, and having the perspectives of various investors who've worked with a lot of venture companies really helps people who are trying to found their companies and looking for investments, as well as really how do you get started. I think the trickiest part is that getting started part. A person has a good idea, they may not have the funding to even build the MVP, so they're kind of stuck at the idea stage. But then maybe they do some self-financing, maybe they use their credit card to get things going, or they use some of their savings. And that's all very personal to the person and the situation they're in at that moment. But assuming they get to that stage where they are working towards the MVP, Gary brought up the really good point about the power of pivoting. When you're actually in the heat of the moment building the product, you do have to keep a very close eye and ear open for what is the market saying. I mean, what kind of regulatory issues might you be facing? What is is the market changing as you're building the product? And you have to be very agile in the sense that you have to pivot when you see a situation that isn't moving in the direction that you thought it is. So you have to say, okay, maybe we need to rebrand, repurpose this product to something different. Even with our contact tracing application, we originally started building the application for doctors and hospitals. We felt they really needed a tool. But as we got closer to that market, we realized, there's tremendous amounts of regulations in the healthcare industry. As we began to understand how hospitals interact with one another, and we spoke to a number of doctors, and they said, hospitals don't talk to each other. They're very competitive in how they deal with their data. So we realized, we really need to pivot the product to something that the individual consumer uses, as well as the companies that may employ those individuals. So it's really important to be sensitive to what the market's telling you, reach out and have a great team. That's so key. And I think the investors look for that as well, because they know business is very unpredictable. No matter what we think we know about the market, it could change. And the only thing that will save you is a very good team.
Right. Thank you, Hasse. You've summarized it very nicely, what the three of our other speakers just spoke about investments. I also added on your inputs in that. And obviously, I'm hoping to have you back on VCTV to present your project to other investors soon. Thank you so much, Hasse, and I'll speak to you soon. I'd like to, Jose, take your closing remarks and feedback about VCTV. Thank you.
Well, you can find me at Jose Grasa on LinkedIn, or under the name BizMoney, because that's where I'm working on right now. I love VCTV. I think it's a very positive where people can look at many different options and opinions from different parts of the world, but also in different sectors. We have all different experiences. So far for me, it has been since day one a very positive experience, and I would recommend everybody to attend because you really have a very broad, let's say, spectrum, okay, of opinions. And I would just like to finish today with one just short message that I found that is a real maker or a breaker for any entrepreneur. So besides all the things that we discussed here today, one of the biggest problems I have always faced on both sides of the table, being a business angel or a VC or an entrepreneur, that I've seen in others, is that they don't do their homework. That's the biggest issue. It's like love on first sight, right? But love on first sight doesn't mean you're going to marry or that it lasts a lifetime. So that's basically it. So if that love on first sight is fine, but you need to research, right? You need to figure out if it makes sense. And the problem is they just start kicking off doing everything without doing a real proper research. Now I can tell you that proper research, okay, based on the experience that I have, it's like 40 years, right? And I never did one which was shorter than 3 to 6 months. Okay, but there's so many aspects that you need to figure out. Not only if the MVP worked, it's also and we're only talking about tech now, if the market is accepting it, yes or no, if people want to have it, yes or no, because it's not about what you think, it's about what people want. Now you can propose it to them, but if they don't want it, forget it. So one of the things that founders really make a big mistake is what they call market fit. Okay, and the market fit, that doesn't happen because they didn't do their research. If they would have done it, they would have stopped and not go forward and just either change it or do something else. And I would like to leave that message for today so that everybody thinks about it. Thank you, Sonny.
Absolutely, Jose. Market research must. Thank you, Jose. Shailesh, what's your closing remarks and feedback about VCTV?
I think VCTV is one of the I would say the finest platform which I came across while interacting with entrepreneurs and the VCs and the investors, and wherein basically there's a free flow of I would say I would say information as far as I would say even the views. And I would say closing remark as far as the today's topic is concerned, that I would say what industrial revolution of 20th century has brought in the change, the similar sort of change which we foresee in this century due to AI and ML. Because going forward, what we foresee is there will be more and more, I would say, efficiency while offering lowering down the cost of production and services. There will be more and more democratization of all the products. All these products, which were earlier was so-called luxury, would be offered to the masses at the lowest cost possible. Totally. So I would say going forward, and we foresee that probably I think stage 2, I would say the new the new train what we foresee is going to be a major change in I would say automotive driving automation, that is ADAS, as well as in health tech and education. Because in health tech also you can say the remote diagnostic centers would be I would say normal life going forward, as well as I would say telemedicines, rather than you physically walk into any medical practitioner. And also, and of course the education, because during these last 6 months everybody has learned online education, so that is the trend probably we foresee that is going to pick up like anything. And of course in cities like metros like Bangalore or Mumbai or New York, where the driving is the hell out of a job, I think the ADAS will play a major role going forward.
AI. Okay, sure. Thank you, Shailesh, for that. Last but not least, Gary, over to you with your closing remarks and feedback about VCTV. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is an unprecedented time. Our lives had fundamentally changed. As McKinsey said about a year ago, 92% of companies were looking at digital transformation over the next 10 years. Well, we've had to do that and adapt in a very short period of time. So look at the sales, retail sales, look at entertainment, look at how these businesses that have embraced online and the digital transformation have really changed. AI is going to affect all parts of our lives. We're going to live a lot longer. I was involved in a project at Stanford University with some of my MBA students are living to 120. Now they're talking about 150 because of technologies and robotics and nanobots, et cetera. So it's there, printed organs. So we need to embrace it. Don't be shocked. I'll tell you a little story. When the pandemic started, there were 2 Chinese restaurants very close to where I am. One of them went out of business. Another one was afraid but stayed in business. I had a conversation recently with him. He said his business doubled. The other Chinese restaurant wasn't near him. And he said because he did delivery. And so he embraced the whole thing, came up with an incredible delivery system, signed up with Uber Eats and Grubhub and all that. And his business is doubled as expenses are less, right? So if you embrace it, you can win. Don't be afraid, get stuff done, move forward. So, and I love VCTV. I feel like the family. Sonny, it's amazing. I feel like, I get to see it, to see your smile every day, see Minnie Mouse in the background. I love it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Gary. You've been a regular speaker, starting from Kyle's show to mine. And we have so much information coming out of you, so much positivity as well whenever you speak. That's my personal feedback to you. And, so thanks for that. Thanks for being so committed to VCTV. And I really, really appreciate your time, all of you, Hasi, Jose, obviously, Shailesh. I mean, really, really appreciate your time and commitment to VCTV. So founders who are looking to raise funds, you can always reach out to Jose, Gary, and Salish, but you have to put in the hard work. Like, if these investors can make it on VCTV every day, they can spend their time every day, so can you. Pitch, pitch, pitch. That's the only way to get the funding, much needed funding. And you have to make sure that whatever Jose mentioned, Gary mentioned, Salis mentioned, you have to factor those points into your pitch deck as well during the presentation. So, so these are some of the recipes for successful fundraising, I would say. And thank you so much. You can find all our investors in our website, www.latoken.com/profiles. So you can see them featured. You all have to do, go and click on the pitch button, and we are going to connect you with these investors. And having said that, we are almost at the end of the show. I would like to say, please stay safe, stay healthy, stay connected. You can always reach out to me and Carol if you want to speak or pitch. And thank you so much and have a